everybody, Bob Chick along with David Bay. We're back with another edition of TLR here at musculardevelopment.com. And David, the last week has been nothing short of stories in the bodybuilding world, most notably Kevin Levrone, of course. We'll get into that in just a moment. That's going to fill up most of the show, of course.
Right.
People with no lack of an opinion on that one. But first and foremost, big congrats to Gary Udit and the crew. And in Pittsburgh, of course, Jim Mannion's big show just this past weekend. Some of the world's top pros, of course, taking the stage in a filled-up auditorium. I wasn't there, David, but you were.
Yeah, no, it was a great weekend. It's a lot of fun in Pittsburgh, like you said. Everybody shows up. Everybody knows that it's this big all-star guest posing extravaganza, and on top of everybody that's guest posing, you pretty much get anybody who's anybody showing up for the weekend just to hang out. And you know, it is a president's show, so he's been running that since the mid-'70s. Funny enough, he said when he ran it in 1975 or 76, he had Arnold and Franco as the guest posers. So
Yeah,
he's been doing the all-star guest posing thing for a long time. But it was a good weekend, good competition too. We had 4 divisions. For the men, we had classic physique and men's physique. For the women, we had figure and bikini. The big story was probably the classic physique division. You know, we know the division's relatively new. Most of the winners that we've been seeing for the classic physique are guys that have come down from bodybuilding. We saw Danny Hester win, Stan McQuay, Darren Charles. This was one of the first shows, and I'd have to go back and take a look over all the results. But a men's physique guy, in fact, 2 out of the top 3 guys in the top 3 were former men's physique competitors. A New York guy, Arash Rabar, I think his name was. This guy looked absolutely fantastic. Tiny waist, exactly what you think of when you think of like classical physique. He still isn't as muscular as like a Labrada or somebody like that when you think of the old school classic physiques, but small waist, really good legs. I mean, so he kind of shot down the whole men's physique guys don't train legs or haven't been training legs, because the way his legs looked, that wasn't something that you build over the course of 6 months and deciding that you're going to do classic physique. I mean, he's been hammering him for a while. Darren Charles was in second place. Pretty par for the course for Darren as far as his conditioning and size and everything. Again, I felt like he had more of a classical structure, at least when he was in bodybuilding, because he just doesn't have, he never had a real big quad sweep, but mostly his thighs are downsized a little bit. And in third place, you had AJ Sharouk, I believe is his last name. Another guy that was a men's physique competitor. He was always a little bit big for men's physique, and he wasn't placing real well. And he fits into classic physique really well. He's going to have to bring up his legs a little bit, but his upper body is really good. So it was a good classic physique show. We had a couple guys there that were transfers from the men's physique division that just looked like soft men's physique competitors and were really out of place. But there was also some really good competitors. Victor Prisk, everybody knows Victor. He made his actual pro debut. He got his pro card a few years ago, and it's kind of been.
Doctor, where did he place?
I'm not exactly sure. You know, I think he was either 5th or 6th by the way the callouts went. Right. So, conditioning wise, I think Victor had the best conditioning in the whole show. I don't think that was a question from anybody. It's got to get a little bit more quad sweep to kind of have that hourglass figure. Sure. I keep using the term hourglass. I'm so used to saying V-taper, but in classic physique, I guess in bodybuilding too, you're more looking for the hourglass. It sounds like something you'd say about a model, but no, classic physique was good. George Brown won the men's physique. That was not really a surprise to anybody. In the bikini, little bit of a surprise. Angelica Texeira won. And then I think Michelle Sylvia was in third, in second. Justine Monroe, the favorite going into the show, she was a little bit soft, and Justine is usually on. It's a rare thing to see her off, but she was a little bit off for best conditioning. She got third. And then in the women's figure division, this was an interesting one because Shanique Grant, the 20-year-old who's got the crazy right. structure, she was in the first call out but moved to the outside, and then she was actually hanging around for the second call out when they moved some of the top girls around. So I thought she would compare very well to some of the people, but when you put her on stage with a lineup that was there that weekend, she was just a little bit too muscular. But her structure is still crazy. Sydney Gillen ended up winning it, and this is a girl, as far as the figure division, that keeps getting just better and better and better. I mean, we saw her at her all-time best at the Arnold Australia, and she's going to be a legitimate contender for a top 5 spot at the Olympia. She's been in the top 10 the last couple of years, but with the progress she's made and the way she looks, I don't I don't see her slipping outside the top 5 or 6 at the Olympia this year.
Well, here's the thing now with that. Listen, Shanique Grant is a talent. I mean, she's very young. I don't even know if she's 20 yet.
She's 20. I
Yeah.
mean, it's
So,
unreal.
listen, I've got shoes older than her. All right. Bottom line is, this chick's good. I mean, but you're right. She's a little over the top. If the judging criteria is going to do what they talked about last year, and they're going to bring that down a notch, which I'm in favor of, I would like to see the Shanique Grants. I just talked to Mela Ash, another top pro in the Dallas area, as I was down there for Steve Kuklow's show, and a great show, by the way. We'll get into that in a second. I would love to see these kind of physiques going in women's physique. What I think you might see is a big push of these girls that infiltrate the women's physique division, which I think would be phenomenal. But that would really mix things up. But those are the kind of physiques we're looking for women's physique.
Yeah, Shanique actually came and talked to me after the show, which happens sometimes. That I'm doing as many play-by-plays as I do, and I'm at all the shows and try to give the people feedback. And she asked me what I thought, and I was just structurally, she's so gifted. I kind of just put my hands in the air. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you,
right?
And I had talked to her about switching over to women's physique. She seems very happy with where she's at size-wise right now, and I think her biggest concern was that she would have to get even bigger.
No,
in the women's physique.
No.
I don't. If you look at the top girls in women's physique right now, I think Shanique could probably lean out by 5 or 10%.
Yep.
And no disrespect to any of the girls in the women's physique division, because it's a genetics thing, but I think Shanique could very well just dominate the entire women's physique division should she decide to go that route. But she's going to have to make up her mind. She's going to have to go one way or the other a little bit. She's going to have to get a little bit leaner and maybe just a touch bigger to go into women's physique, or she's probably going to have to tone it down a little bit if she wants to stay in figure. Either direction she goes, if she makes the changes that she needs to make, she's going to do fantastic.
Well, the biggest misconception is that the women's physique competitors are big. And you and I can both attest. They're not big girls. I mean, you look at the Mindy O'Briens and even Juliana Melicarne. Now,
she's not big in person.
No.
When you see her, they're little.
They're a tiny girl. I mean, Shanique would fit right in there. Again, Mela Ash, who I talked to, is not a name a lot of people would know, but she's got a very good physique. Not to the extreme, but very reminiscent of a Shanique Grant. You'll be seeing her in just a few weeks coming up. I would love to see these girls in physique. They're not too small. They can go in exactly how they are. But that's what I would like to see, kind of filling that division out. And I think you might see that this year with the criteria, again, assuming that they adhere to it, because that's very difficult to do. If all the girls show up a little over the top in Muscular, you got to judge them as to where they are. So, and that's going to be interesting with Latoria Watts at the top of the key now. And Nicole obviously coming back. She's going to try to get that title back. So it'll be an interesting year when it comes to seeing, who fits where and kind of who makes that jump.
Absolutely.
Speaking of Mela Ash. Now, I was down in Dallas, Texas. Steve Kuklo and Amanda putting on his very first show in Dallas, the Kuklo Classic. Should have spelled it all with K's, in my opinion, but that's okay. Maybe leave the third one off. That might have been a little strange, but listen, great show. For a first-time show, they had just under 300 across the stage with crossovers. That's a great number.
Yeah,
had a lobby full of vendors and people supporting the show. Audience was packed up nice, prejudging, night show. He did very well. And Steve guest posed. Now, most notably, listen,
no disrespect to Steve, but he's been a little off his last couple shows. And I know you can't always tell by pictures, but even if pictures are a little off, I saw those pictures of Steve guest posing, and I was just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all seen the pictures. They've been posted all over. Did he look as ridiculous in person as he did in those pictures?
Let me tell you something about my boy Kuklo, okay? Because everybody gave me crap a couple years ago when I defended his win down in Brazil or wherever it was. And even though he wasn't on the money, nobody else was on the money either. And that's why I said, look, I don't have any problem with him winning over Lionel Bayeki, who should have been second, by the way. And the other guys, I think Juan and John were in there as well. But listen, nobody was on that show, including Steve. But the Steve Kuklo you're seeing right now is miles ahead of any physique he's actually put on the stage.
Oh, he looked as big as I've ever seen him, as full, and conditioning, which has been a bit of an issue for him at the Olympia and then San Antonio last year. At 2 weeks out, he looked like he was basically stage ready. Had you said that those were stage pictures, I think people would have said, he looked fantastic. I think I think with as big as he is and as wide as he is, everybody kind of just has Dexter walking away with the New York Pro,
Well,
and
listen,
with Dexter's track record, rightfully so. I think Steve's going to push Dexter real hard in New York if he
listen.
looks.
There's a reason they play the game, and that's not. Listen, it's Dexter's show to win or lose. We all know that he's the highest-ranking guy on that stage. He's a former Mr. Olympia, and he doesn't seem to show any signs of aging or slowing down. But that's that said, Steve Kuklo has all the physiques, all the pieces of a physique that can do very well on the Olympia stage.
Oh,
Now,
absolutely.
listen, he's got to come in. He's got to bring it in. I talked to him at length. He's got a different program he's running. And bottom line is, instead of juggling 10 balls in that last week, getting ready for the show, he's going to juggle 3. Now, that's just a real simple way of saying he's brought the preparation stuff down to where there's not so much stuff going on that even if something goes wrong, you don't know what to look at. So, but I tell you what, it's a good system. It's the way to go. No hocus pocus, no voodoo stuff in the last week. There is no peak week and all that kind of stuff, all right? Just land the plane, man. Just bring it down nice and easy onto the runway into New York, and he's going to do very well. He also tells me he signed up to do Toronto, which I think is a great move for him. So if it doesn't go his way in New York, I think it's definitely a show he can win.
Absolutely.
But you will see Steve Kuklo on the Olympia stage this year. And by the way, while we're talking about some of the new jacks,
Olympia stage.
Listen,
Who's there?
Here's the bottom line, bro. I saw some footage the other day of Dallas McCarver. Okay, this kid's a beast.
Dallas is a freak.
I'm going to give you guys right now, again, and this past Olympia, I gave Dallas a good shout out because I honestly thought he could have placed a little bit higher than he did. The physique you're going to see from this kid this year is nothing short of tremendous. That kid is going places.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, you talk about Buck Strong. I'm watching this guy.
He's deadlifting 800. He
does stupid weight. I mean, he's going to be into Ronnie category pretty soon. I'm watching him doing at the end of his leg workout. At the end, okay, after he squatted the world, had 10 million pounds on the leg press. I'm watching him with 2 1/4 on the bar doing walking lunges.
Yeah, that's a heavy walking lunge. He just posted a video the other day. He was doing Smith machine squats. Now, mind you, Smith machine squats are slightly easier than regular squats, but he was banging out 6 plates on a Smith machine squat.
Yeah,
like it was nothing. And the thing is, for as strong as he's become and as big as he's getting, his waist has stayed in check, and that's one of the big things that, hey, look, your midsection is what's the chain length between your back and your legs, and if your legs and your back are going to get to a certain size, a lot of times your waist is going to grow. But Dallas has managed to keep his waist in check, and so it just makes everything else look that much bigger. But I agree, he's going to be a phenom, and I don't throw that word around a whole lot. But
no, not since the Undertaker. But the bottom line is, listen, you talk about the next generation. Everybody wants to know when the modern guys retire, who's going to take their place. Listen, look no further. You got Steve Kuklo. You got Dallas McCarver. You got Justin Compton. You got Juan Morel. You got, John De La Rosa, who, again, we just saw some pics of, looks tremendous going into New York. Yeah, listen, the state of bodybuilding is alive and well with the next generation. But as soon as we talk about the new guys, we talk about the old generation. And the big story this week, as we segue our way into that,
the biggest story in a while.
Yeah, the return of my old friend Kevin Levrone. The Maryland Muscle Machine is back in action. He actually made a statement. Now, this is big because, listen, we've heard of 100 comebacks from Kevin that has never taken place.
Right.
And quite frankly, nobody ever took him seriously. When you put yourself out there on the president of the company stage, all right, on a microphone with every camera on you and all that, and you make the statement, I am going into the Olympia, obviously a non-issue in my opinion. I can't believe somebody even brought this up, but it was, why did he get a special invite? Do I really have to explain this? Do we take 5 seconds to explain this?
Yeah. Well, shouldn't he have to qualify like everybody else?
No.
It's like, all right, bring it down, Skippy.
No.
It's Levrone. I think he's good,
Listen, there's few people. Now, listen, I was one of those people. I am not in favor of special invites. And I'll tell you exactly the reason why. Because back in the day when I was competing, they were rarely ever given out. But the one exception seemed to be Gunther. Now, I did have a problem with that because to me, he hadn't earned it. We all had to qualify. And the only reason he got the special pass is because he was, Joe Weider's boy. Joe loved him. And listen, God bless Joe. Up in that big gym in the sky. But listen, that was not deserved in my opinion. You don't give people a free pass, especially people that are current. You're talking about a legend. And I'm telling you, I can put him on one hand, bro. If Sean Ray wanted to come back, if Flex Wheeler wanted to come back, if Ali Labrada wanted to come back, or a Rich Gasper. You don't make these guys requalify. You
Yeah,
absolutely give
exactly.
them a pass into that Olympias. They have earned that right. They're legends in the sport. Case closed on that. But let's get into the nitty gritty. Now,
Break this
listen,
down, huh?
I'm not actually going to contemplate any comebacks anytime soon, David. If I was,
Say,
however,
what do you?
you can be damn sure I'd be starting things off with my Super DMZ 5.0. That's right, folks. You heard it here first. It's redesigned, reformulated, relabeled. And I tell you what, I'm going to start my comeback right now, bro. Here it is.
Here he goes.
Bottoms
There's
up.
Bob Chick, Olympia 2016.
Product plate. Can you see that okay? Is that, you got that?
Yeah, no, it's clear.
Yeah.
I have an Iron Mag shirt in my closet. I go throw it on.
I got a few myself. I'm going to rip the sleeves off of one of these just so I can go do some yard work after. But all right, listen, let's get into the nitty gritty now. Let's talk realism. I'm not a fan of Kevin in effect. I grew up with Kevin. We competed together. I watched him come up from the junior nationals and that. He's a good, close friend of mine. I love Kevin Levrone. That said, all right, I don't look at things as a fan looks at it. I look at things from my perspective, of course, and us in the industry. Listen, is it a good move? I applaud this move 100 times over. I would love, this could be the story of the year. I would love to see Kevin get on that stage. I would love to see him return to even close to his old self and all that stuff. Now, the betting man in me says, if I was to go to Vegas and put this on a line, okay, why are people putting photos up of Kevin Levrone from 1993 and 4 in his heyday? How is this a comparison?
I'll tell you what, Kevin Levrone he's such an icon that that people want to believe, especially with there has been a little bit of a lack of hype in bodybuilding, a lack of spark, and people just want to see somebody come back and do well. And Kevin's a very likable guy. He didn't go out. Here's the thing with Kevin. He didn't go out. His legs were a little bit down when he went out. But he didn't go out with any major injuries. When Ronnie went out,
right,
everybody knew Ronnie was done. Jay's comeback, you could see a little bit of the signs of injuries and possibly some nerve stuff. And I love Jay as much as anybody else, but he kind of went out with people saying, okay, his body is showing signs of aging. And you see that a lot. Branch Warren, whenever Branch chooses to retire, people are going to say, okay, his body was kind of
sure,
battling with him. Kevin went out with a little bit smaller legs, but I don't think he went out with any sort of, when you look at his physique from his last couple shows, you weren't like, okay, his left side is down or he's showing
right,
signs of atrophy in this arm or this leg. So he kind of went out, not necessarily on his highest note, but he didn't go out because of some kind of injury or because of,
he wasn't all beat up.
Yeah, he wasn't all beat up. I'm looking at this comeback from a couple of different standpoints. I obviously started off as a huge fan of Kevin. I started getting involved in bodybuilding right around 1990, so shortly thereafter, and for my whole teen years in my early 20s and stuff, Kevin was my favorite. He was
sure,
the guy that I really liked. So from a fan standpoint, to have the opportunity to see Kevin on stage at an Olympia after you think that's just so far removed from something that's possible, that I'm excited about. I think the audience is going to love it. I think you're probably going to sell that whole place out,
sure,
just because Kevin's coming back. Now, from an analytical standpoint, I look at this from a couple different sides. One, at 52, can he carry the mass that he carried at 35? And that I don't know, but he's going to have to. If you look at the top 6, even the top 10 from this year's Olympia, it's going to be good. Now, Dennis Wolf, we just heard the news, he got hurt. We don't know what's going on with Kai, but let's take those two guys out of the situation. Let's even take Branch out. We don't know what's going on with Branch. You still have Phil Heath, you still have Roden, you still have Dexter, you still have Ramy, and that's probably going to be your top 4. Ruli Winkler, you have Steve Kuklo, you have Dallas McCarver, you have Juan Morel, you have William Bonac, even a halfway in shape Lionel Bayecki, and I'm sure I'm forgetting a couple guys, Josh Lenardowitz. I mean, the top 10 at this Olympia is going to be no joke, and it's a lot of big guys. So Kevin's going to have to get back, not just from a conditioning standpoint, he's going to have to get back to his old size to be competitive. Now,
right,
that being said, diving a little bit further into this, and trust me, I've cranked this out a lot. If you look at Kevin's contest preparation from the past, it was very well known that 16 weeks out, the guy would be 205, 210,
Right.
and he would blow up and show up on stage. Kevin has the best response of
Bar
any
none.
bodybuilder probably ever. We're looking at Kevin right now. At what are we? 5 months out. You've got May, June, July, August. He's roughly 5.5 months out. Okay, and Kevin is, and you'll be able to help me out on this one. But from what I know, Kevin is bigger and leaner right now at 5.5 months out than he had been in the past when he started his contest prep.
Yeah.
So the question comes to me: is this Kevin at the beginning of a prep looking this good, and we can say, well, if he used to start off even smaller and softer, if this is his starting point, how good can he get? On the flip side of that discussion, the Kevin that we're looking at right now, is this as big and as lean? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, is he maxed out? Has he already had that crazy response, and this is as big as he's going to get? Because for as good as he looks right now, he's still going to have to be a lot bigger. So those are my questions with Kevin. Is he just at the beginning of his prep and he's going to blow up in the same fashion that he used to from this starting point, or is where he's at right now, is that about as big as he's gonna get? He's already ramped things up to get to where he's at right now.
All right. Well, here's the answer. The answer is he ain't 35 anymore. He's not even 40 or 45 anymore. So, while I wish him the best, and I put a post out that's pretty much going to detail what I'm going to say right now on the boards. I would love to see Kevin back in that old form. The bottom line is, though, is that's not reality. The best we can hope for is a Kevin now that does blow up to a degree. Now, he ain't going to get back to where he was. That ain't going to happen. The biggest question mark, his upper body will look good. I think he can get his upper body close to what he used to be. Maybe not entirely, but close. It's the legs. The legs is the big question mark. You ain't seeing him training in shorts. You're going to see the chest and the arm shots and the big, sideways most muscular that he pretty much defined and all that stuff.
Right.
The question is yes, his legs wore down his last show or two back in the day. Are they going to get better with age like fine wine? I don't think so. No, it's probably not an injury thing. It's just an age thing. So the biggest question on is probably not even his upper body. It's his lower body. Now, that said, he's going to have to get to a degree of conditioning to match these guys. Stand up there with the Dexter Jacksons and all these new guys and some of the old veterans that have been there for a while. Now, before people start playing the Dexter card and saying, well, Dexter's 40-something himself. Yes, but Dexter has been at the top and at the Olympia level for the last 13 years. Kevin has not. We've seen Kevin at 200 pounds. Now being lean is actually a bonus to me, to Kevin at this point, because he's starting from lean and going up. He's not having to lose 70 pounds and that type of thing. But Dexter's been there, man. He hasn't been out. He hasn't been off the grid. He hasn't been out on stage. Coming back to any show would be something. Coming back to the Olympia stage is going to be very interesting to see. Now, this is assuming that he can stay healthy in the next 5 months. Now, none of us want to see Kevin injured out or God forbid, something should happen and he can't get on the Olympia stage. But listen, when you're rifling everything into 5 months, David, for the comeback of your life and perhaps of all time, he's going to be pushing that envelope. And listen, you can get away with that stuff in the 30-somethings and maybe even 40. At 50, that's going to be interesting to see. And I hope that he plays it smart. I hope he trains smarter and not harder, but that's going to be difficult to do, bro. The comparisons to Phil Heath, by the way, are ludicrous. Ludicrous. Listen, making the top 10 would be phenomenal. If he can place 9th or 10th, 11th, somewhere in that range, listen, my hat's off to him, man. Kevin, nice job, brother. He's probably the only one that can do it. If you can make the top 6, that's a miracle. If you could make the top 3, I'll eat this hat, okay? Because, listen, he ain't taking anybody. Give me the top 3, David.
Right now,
Let's just assume Kai's in it, by the way.
I'll give you the top 4.
Give me the top 4.
Top 4. Phil, Sean, Dexter, and Ramy.
Okay, now, we're not even putting Kai in there because God knows what he's doing, but just take those 4 guys. The chances of him beating those 4 guys is next to 0. Ramy, if he comes off, maybe. But those other 3 guys, there ain't a shot in this earth. These comparisons to Phil and whether he can beat Phil, let me tell you something. Just take every other photo out in existence. Put Kevin's all-time best physique picture that you can find of a back double bicep, and now put up Phil's back double bicep from pretty much any show in the last 5 years, okay? Now, the show's over. The show is over, okay? He can't beat Phil from the back.
If you start going pose for pose, front double bicep, I think it's close. Front lat spread, I think Kevin has Phil.
Maybe Kevin.
You know, the thing is, side chest was always one of Kevin's best shots, but Phil's side chest is pretty ridiculous. Side tricep,
Phil.
It's hard to beat there. Your back shots, Phil's back double bicep is lights out when he's on, and he's got better detail than I think Kevin had. Back lat spread, I think Kevin's going to be wider than Phil at his best, mind you. Most muscular, I think it's a toss-up. If they both do their hands clasping most muscular, it's going to make for the best bodybuilding picture of all time.
Now, again, we still got Kevin in 1990-something in mind. This is the problem, okay? And the bottom line is this. If Kevin can get that, if he can get to the conditioning that these Olympians are at, he would be too small, in my opinion. If he can get to that level of conditioning, he would have to drop too much. I don't think he can put that kind of... You're not talking about a year comeback. You're talking about 5 months. The last two of which...
5 months, is 5 months all... Like, I'm going to play devil's advocate for a little bit. We've seen Kevin go... Like I said, I obviously haven't seen it personally, but I've heard story after story, from Steve Blackman, from you, from Sean.
Oh, I've been there.
Blackman's telling me he saw Kevin, he said something at like 13 or 14 weeks out from an Olympia one year, and it was like, there's no way you're not going to be able to do it.
I actually almost walked past him at the Weider office. This is a true story. And I don't know if he was coming back from one of the injuries or something or other, but I literally almost walked past him. Oh, hey, Kev, hey, what's up, man? And he was, 200 pounds. And I swear, with God as my witness, bro, we had to be 12 weeks out of the Olympia.
Yeah.
And he told me, I'm going to, hit the Olympia. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, well, good luck with that.
Right.
And he ended up taking second. I've never seen a guy, when you talk about super responders, all right, he's at the top of the list. The only other guy I ever saw that was close to that was Danny Padilla, believe it or not. Danny, you would literally watch him grow in a workout. Like from the time he came in to the time we left, I swear he put 2 inches of muscle on his upper body. He was tremendous like that too. Just great genetics and response. But again, the response when you're 30-something, the response even when you're 40, is a lot different than 50. I don't know if you get super response anymore. Maybe you just get response, and like you said, okay, listen, do we see a good Kevin or do we see a great Kevin? He would have to be great, in my opinion, to make the top 10.
It's gonna be a tough top 10. The one question that's also getting brought up that people are discussing, and it's gonna be on the flip side of your Dexter discussion. Dexter's been on the top for 10, 15, 100 years,
right.
And he's been grinding away that whole time. Is there a, I don't know if the aspect, but is there a possibility that because Kevin has stayed smaller and stuff, and kept his size down and whatever he's doing very moderate, is there the possibility that his body is fresh even though he's at his age? Now he said he said on that video, and he posted X-rays and stuff like that he went to his orthopedic surgeon or something along those lines, had full body MRIs done. And the guy said he's basically got the body of a 24, 25-year-old. Now, if you see Kevin in person, I'm not going to even argue with that because...
Looks great.
He looks younger than I do, which is just whatever. I hate him for that. But so that's the other question mark for me. Is this time off? It's like, okay, he can't come back because he's this old. Is there going to be maybe some kind of benefit from the fact that he has taken this much time off from pushing things real hard, hitting the weights real hard, and maybe the super responder that we're going to see is going to come back just because of the amount of time that he's had of taking it easy, and maybe your receptors are fresh, your body's fresh.
I don't know.
Like I said, my biggest question is the way Kevin looks right now. Is this the beginning of his, or is he already kind of leveling off?
So you want to know if he's at the start or if he's at the end. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, if he shows up with a decent amount of size and good conditioning, I think it's going to be a win-win for Kevin and the fans and everybody else.
Well,
I think as long as he looks, everybody's got to realize the guy's 52 and that the lineup is very good. I would love to see him place in the top 10. getting that second call out with guys like Dallas, and not to say that Dallas is going to be in the second call out because that's yet
He
to be
could.
seen. But if we're looking at our first call out being the guys I listed before, I would love to see Kevin in a second call out get compared against some of the young guns. Obviously that would be really cool for guys like Dallas and Josh Nardowitz, another guy who could very well be like a second call out type
Sure.
guy to stand on stage next to Levrone. So as long as Kevin doesn't completely bomb, which I don't think he will.
I don't think he would
Um,
either. If
I
he
don't
can
think
get
he
to the
will.
stage, if he
I
can
think
get
if
to the
Kevin looks,
stage,
I
and I
think it's
use that term because I sincerely hope that he doesn't, get an injury or something. Listen, anything can happen when you're pushing the envelope and you've got 5 months till the Olympia and a great comeback. So if he can get to the stage, no, he's not going to bomb. I know Kevin very well. I know his physique very well. He will put up a physique that's very good. Now, where that lands in there, again, we're going to have to see. Listen, I'd love to see him take some people out. Just I think it's a great story.
I'd love to see him. And I tell you what, I would. There's the old rule: you don't
Sure.
cheer from the press pit. That's for the guys, watching. It's like if you're a media person and you're sitting there taking pictures or writing reviews, you're not supposed to stand up and cheer and show favoritism. If Kevin is on stage and he looks good, you can bet your ass that
Yeah,
I'm going to be
sure.
on my seat. I'm going to be yelling and cheering like everybody else. And I think the one other thing that we can guarantee with a Kevin Levrone return is an absolutely stellar posing routine
Oh,
that
yeah.
will bring the crowd to their feet. It'll be very memorable. And, if Kevin decides that this is a one and done return, I think you'll get a standing ovation in bodybuilding like you've probably never seen before. So,
Hey, listen, I'd give him a standing O just for getting on that stage at this state and taking this challenge on. So I'm looking forward to. I'd love to have Kevin at the press conference. It's all these other little things
That's
that we don't
that's
even
gonna
think
be
about. But
that's gonna be a good one because I know you're gonna go to some of the younger guys
oh
and
yeah,
ask them, antagonize them a little bit.
no, 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 never
There's
that I would
I'm
ever
not
do
gonna
something like that.
I'm not gonna say any names because there's a certain amount of privacy in certain conversations that you have with the other professionals. But I will say that it's a mixed bag of responses from some of the pros. I did talk to a good handful of the pros in Pittsburgh this weekend. Some of the guys were like, "Yep, we wish him the best." Some of the guys were like, he ain't gonna stand with me," and I mean, it's like,
Hey,
I mean,
listen,
so
these guys love Kevin too, but it's all war when you're talking about the Olympia. You're talking the checks are substantially different. Every spot you go higher on that list. So
well, I think some of these guys just don't want to be. Hey, look, if you're a guy who's at the top of your game and a 52-year-old guy comes back
damn right.
and whoops your ass, I mean, that's a hard pill to swallow. So I think there's a little bit of that too. I think it's going to definitely be in the back of the head of some of the top pros that they might get bumped a little bit if Kevin shows up on the money. And for every comment that I have to make on about maybe he's not going to be at his best, I think it goes without saying that I don't do much praying in bodybuilding. It's
think
not worth it.
about
I
think
am
about
praying
this, David.
that,
Think
that
about
Kevin
this point
Levrone
now.
is at his best because
There's
I would.
not literally one other name that you could bring up from that era that if they came back, you would give them a snowball's chance in hell of getting on that stage and doing anything. Zero. Nobody. And I say that with no disrespect to anybody else. But Kevin Levrone literally is the only guy that I can think of with the genetics and the wherewithal to actually even warrant a conversation like this. If anybody else was coming back, there wouldn't even be a discussion of whether they can beat Phil, place in the top 3 or 6 or even the top 10. It would just be one of those, okay, well, listen, it'd be great to have him back, but hopefully he'll make the top 15 and we'll see his routine. That's huge, and that's a very big respect level to Kevin Levrone because he's literally the only guy in the world I think that could come back and make this happen. Now, I'm going to give you a date, David, and I want you to tell me why it's significant. Okay? May 13th.
Friday the 13th.
Could care less, with all due respect to
May
Casey
13th
Voorhees
is
and
significant because it is the deadline for Kai Green to sign the contract for the Olympia. As of right now, as far as I know, it is not signed. And from everything I know from, I shouldn't say everything I know, from what I've heard from different camps and whatever, Jay Cutler said it in Australia this year at his seminar. I don't know that we'll be seeing Kai on the Olympia stage.
well,
I just don't know that's in his plans. He got 3 Arnold wins this year. I'll tell you what, I do know from talking to Kai and his manager, Kai's making a ton of money through his appearances, and he's going all over the world. One thing that I'm sure you're aware of is the top pros over here, Jay, Phil, Kai, they're starting to get more and more of these international appearances
Sure.
over in Europe, the Middle East, Asia, and these guys are making big money from these international appearances. So for Kai, whatever money he would win at the Olympia, like let's say he takes second place, he can make that up in 5 or 6 trips overseas that he might not make if he was
Yeah, but
for the
listen,
Olympia.
bro. This ain't about money, okay? Listen, they're all making these appearances and trips. So does Phil. So does Dexter. So does Wolf. So they all do the same kind of appearance. They all make big money. They've all got big money. This is not a money issue. The issue I got with this is, and you're right. Obviously, May 13th is the deadline. Now, I don't know if that's a soft deadline, if that's the deadline, especially this year, given the circumstances of last year. But I can tell you this: I saw his statement the other day, as I'm sure you did as well. And it's your usual Kai-esque type statement. Doesn't really tell you anything. Hey, we're negotiating. Well, let me clarify this for everybody, okay? When you talk about the Olympia contract, there is no negotiating. There is no, we're going to kind of see what we can do. Kind of, listen, the Olympia contract is the Olympia contract. It states basically 3 things. One, I am lending my signature, like any other IFBB show, to compete in this competition. 2, that you will adhere to all the promo things like the press conference and the Meet the Olympians, all the things that go along with the Olympia. And
Right.
3, that you will lend in your likeness and license to Olympia LLC to use, obviously, in promo material. Now, for those that want to know, this is why he wasn't on the posters last year. People kind of switched it and they put the cart before the horse. Well, he's not on the posters. That's why he's pissed off. It's like, no, he wasn't on the posters because he didn't sign the contract, which means they don't have any right to use your photo. Okay?
Right. And that's
So
material
there's
that has
3
to
things that Olympia contract cover. That has nothing to do with anything else. 0. So if you want to get a booth, you want your company represented at the expo, whatever, you want to sell promo materials, whatever you want to do, okay? You want Dynamic Muscle to be represented. That is a separate part and parcel of the Olympia contract. One has nothing to do with the other. So there is no negotiating. It's the same contract that he has signed and all the Olympians signed and have since 1902. Okay, it's the same one. It doesn't. There's nothing hidden in there. It doesn't license you to do anything else. That's what it is. So if he doesn't sign the contract, it has. I just want to put this statement out right now. I'll save Robin Chang the time of making a video himself. It has nothing to do with anything other than the fact that he doesn't want to compete.
It's fair enough.
Now,
I think
why?
I think the
Would he
fans
not
want
want
to
to
see him
compete?
on stage, but like I said, from everything I've heard, and don't take my word for it, I'm not very confident that it's going to happen. I still think it'd be a great show without him. Do I want to see him on stage? Yes. Am
Sure.
I keeping my fingers crossed that he changes his mind? Yes. Even if it's not in the next 2 days and they can't use him on the promotional material, would I hope that he still works something out later on down the road? Yes. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we see Kai on the Olympia stage. Everybody wants to see the 2 best bodybuilders in the world right now. For as good as Dexter is, I still think that's Phil and Kai. I hope he signs a contract one way or the other, whether it be before this Friday or whether it be the Friday before the show, whatever he's got to do to get on that stage.
Well, listen, you and I get a lot of flack. Hey, you guys, you IFBB guys, you don't want to upset that thing. Listen, let's not ignore the elephant in the room, okay? Why in God's green earth would Kai Green, especially at this stage of his career, because he's closer to the end than he is the beginning. I mean, there's no question about it. All right, not that he's looking bad by any stretch. He looks tremendous. Why would he not want to compete in the Olympia? Listen, you can win 10 Arnolds. And let me tell you, I asked Branch Warren a couple of years ago. So let me ask you: you've won a few Arnolds. You've got. Would you trade every one of your victories, including the Arnoldson, for one Olympia? Without hesitation, he said, "Hell yeah, of course I
Yeah,
would."
I think maybe from Kai's standpoint, if he feels like, let's say he feels like they're not going to let him win it. Like, let's just say that he's always going to be second or third. The thing that would always sit in the back of my head as a competitor is we've seen Phil come in off on Friday night. And Peter likes to call Phil Heath Mr. Saturday Night because regardless of how he looks on Friday, Phil always comes back and usually slams the door shut on everybody. there's gonna come a time, and maybe there won't. I shouldn't say there's gonna come a time. I said, but let's say hypothetically, Phil comes in off on Friday, and he looks the same way on Saturday, and Kai Green's sitting at home. You got to wonder if there's always going to be that. Should I, for Jay in 2002, Jay Cutler took off the Olympia in 2002, and that was arguably Ronnie's worst Olympia.
True.
Once he started winning titles, that was arguably Ronnie's worst. Now, had Jay come in 2002 looking like he did in 2001, Jay could have gotten, or possibly could have gotten an Olympia title 4 years before he did. And
let's further that right up. Let's go to 2008, and let's just say that Dexter Jackson said, why bother going in the show, man? I mean,
they're just going to give it to Jay. Yeah, of course.
Well, listen, he won. Dexter won the Olympia title. Now, listen, I don't care whether Jay is off. You can make any excuse. But, listen, you play the game, okay? Bottom line is Dexter Jackson won and earned the title of Mr. Olympia. You can't win the title if you ain't on the stage.
Yeah, I think that's always going to be something that's sitting in the back of your head, knowing if I can be competitive for that top spot, I'm sitting in the audience, and the guy who wins is a little bit off. Is that always going to be sitting in the back of your head? And I think that's probably the hardest thing for somebody like Kai. Obviously he's a competitor. He wants to win. If he sees that maybe this was his shot and he missed it, I think that's hard, something that's hard to sleep on.
Well, I mean, you really got to talk about the mindset of what he's thinking here. And I don't know who runs his camp, who gives him advices, if anybody. But the bottom line is this. I mean, at the 50th, if Phil was off, and Phil will be the first one to tell you he was off. Had Kai Green showed up in shape, now we're talking Olympia. Let's keep things in perspective here, okay? He would have won that title. There's no question in my mind he would have won that title. He caught Phil on an off day, and he was off both days, let's face it. But Kai was off, and Kai notoriously comes in off at the Olympia. Now, I don't know if it's a mind thing, if Phil's just in his head, if he just does it himself, if they try a little bit too hard, because it's the Olympia. People tend to go a little bit more extreme, and sometimes it usually backfires. But the bottom line is he'd have that big gold Sandow sitting on his mantle right now. If he had come in looking like he did in, pick a show, at the Arnold, at the Colorado, at any of those shows that he won, that would have been enough to have won the title. So, listen, it's not a political thing. It's not anything. It's got nothing to do with all these ridiculous things that we hear. Oh, it's just passed. Listen, come on. You think these judges are thinking that stuff when they're down at the panel? No, the bottom line is he gets beat by a better Phil Heath. And if he just comes in on the money, he can win this title. He's one of the few people that could beat a Phil Heath, because let's face it, that's a pretty short list, bro.
It's a very short list. So yeah, like I said, I would like to see him sign the contract. I think if we don't see it signed by Friday, there's the very real possibility that he's not on promotional materials. But I think for the best interest of the show and the sport, I obviously can't speak for Robin or the Olympia LLC or the IFBB, but I would like to think that they're going to give him a little bit of leeway as far as being able to sign it later. Maybe not. Maybe they're gonna...
Listen, bro, I can't speak for them either, and I haven't had a conversation. I wouldn't give any leeway, and that's nothing against him. But listen, at some point, especially given last year's circumstances, listen, he was given more leeway than anybody last year. He could have shown up at the athletes meeting. That's how much leeway he was given. That's Wednesday. I was there. All right. He could have shown up on the spot right then, signed the contract, and been on the stage that weekend. He chose not to do that for whatever his reasons. I would give him zero leeway this year.
Yeah, I think out of respect for the fans and the people buying tickets, I think it would be nice to know at least a few months ahead of time. Yeah. Anybody, in my opinion, anybody who's going to see Kai Green, if they were going to say, I'm not going to go see Kai, the fact that Kevin's going to be there should be enough motivation to get up and buy a ticket. But I do think on that hand, if you give him some leeway, I don't think that's necessarily fair to the fans, because
or to the other athletes.
Yeah, the thing you got to remember is a lot of the people just go to the Olympia. They want to see one person, and Kai's definitely one of those guys where he'll get a lot of people they'll follow him all over. They'll go to a supplement store, they'll go to a gym, they'll go to a show, they'll go to a seminar, wherever they can go to have their opportunity to meet Kai Green, they'll go. So if the fans are under the impression that Kai's going to be there, then he should be there. If they don't purchase a ticket because they don't think he's going to be there and they miss their opportunity last minute, so I think for the best interest of the fans, if nothing else, it would be nice to see Kai either make a decision or not and stick with it.
Well, let me close this segment out with this, David. Is one of the hats I wear, other than this IML hat, is that of athletes rep, as you know, for the IFBB. One of the
Right.
jobs I have to do is to make sure that people are treated equally, that the athletes aren't given consideration or special anything over the other ones. So I would absolutely not be in favor of any extension, any consideration. Listen, we did that last year. I didn't have any issue with it last year because there was ongoing circumstances that we don't know all the things, or at least other people don't know. This year, there is none of that. The bottom line is this: if he's given an extension, then somebody else is going to say, well, wait a minute. How about if I just wait then until June or July or August? So listen, in the interest of being fair for all the IFBB pros and especially the Olympians who all have to adhere to a deadline, that's what he needs to do. And you're right, to the fans, listen, so now in May. So don't give us anything that you purchase tickets, this and that. I think the further out the better. If it's May 13th, great. If that's a soft deadline, I don't know. I'll try to get that information for our next show. But I'll tell you what, this will be an interesting week coming up to see if he actually does put his name on that contract, or if he's out for whatever reasons that he's got. We'll certainly be watching on that, David. But
Yeah, come back next week, talk a little bit about New York, talk about Kai, and
Yeah.
go from there.
we'll have plenty to talk about, I'm sure, and we'll take it from there. The body power's going on in Europe, but we're not there. There's not too much going on. I'm actually off this week, but you're right. New York coming up next week. Huge show down there. Steve Weinberger putting that on once again, and it's loaded up. So you and I will be back, of course, and maybe we'll have to get Peter out here because I want to hear his 2 cents on the Levrone topic as well as the New York Pro. So, David, appreciate it, my brother, as usual. I'll catch you on the boards, where we'll be defending
All right,
the
man.
faith, and that's going to wrap things up here for another TLR. For David Bay, I'm Bob Chick. We're out.